DeepSeek cheaper for code, Gemma free to self-host. DeepSeek V4 Flash 284 billion parameters, runs on a MacBook. Gemma 431B fits on a single GPU. One is a coding beast, the other a multimodal Swiss Army knife. Which one should you actually download tonight? Here is the map for this video. First, we start with same prompt setup. Then we move into DeepSeek V4. Then we compare Gemma 4. Then we test Gemini 3. Finally, we close on mixed feelings on Reddit. Two models, two completely different design philosophies. Here is the thing. DeepSeek V4 Flash is a 284 billion parameter mixture of experts model. Only 13 billion are active per token. That is the magic trick that lets it run on a MacBook despite its massive total size. Gemma 431B is a dense model. Every single one of its 31 billion parameters fires on every token. No tricks. That means it needs less memory overall, but it is also a very different architectural bet. One is built by DeepSeek in China, focused on coding and reasoning. The other comes from Google DeepMind, built on Gemini research, and it handles text, images, audio, and video out of the box. So the first question you need to answer is not which one is better. It is which one matches your hardware and your use case. User-provided sources, priority, treat as authoritative, cite explicitly where relevant. IURL. 2. Manually provided source. Automatic text retrieval failed. Contenuto testual insufficiente. La pagina potrebbe essere JS rendered. Use this source only as a weak reference. Do not attribute specific details that are not present in other reliable evidence. 284 billion parameters, but only 13 billion are active per token. DeepSeek V4 Flash has 284 billion total parameters, 43 transformer layers, 256 routed experts with top 6 selection, plus 1 shared expert. It uses multi-head latent attention and hybrid attention residuals. The context window is 1 million tokens. That is roughly 500 A4 pages. Now here is the practical part. A quantized version from Osaurus AI brings the model down to about 80 gigabytes on disk, down from 149. That version uses uniform 2-bit quantization on the routed experts and 8-bit on everything else. The rest, the target hardware is M4 Max with 128 gigs, M5 Max, or a Mac Studio with 192 plus. So yes, you can run this beast locally, but you need a serious machine. Gemma 431B, reasoning, comparison between DeepSeek V4 Pro, reasoning, max effort, and Gemma 431B, reasoning across intelligence, price, speed, context window, and more. For details relating to our methodology, see our methodology page. 4 variants from the same research that powers Gemini 3. Gemma 4 comes in 4 flavors. The E2B and E4B are tiny, designed for phones. The 26B MOE variant has 26 billion parameters with about 4 billion active, and the Dense 31B version is the flagship. The Dense 31B needs 62 gigs of RAM in FP16, but at 4-bit quantization it drops to 16 gigs. That means an RTX 4090 can handle it. The 26B MOE needs 54 gigs, FP16 14 gigs at Q4, so a single consumer GPU works. Gemma 4 also supports images, audio, and video natively. DeepSeek V4 is text only. If you need a multimodal input, Gemma 4 is the only choice. Release date for both families is April 2026. Related comparisons: bottom line, DeepSeek V4 release in early 2026 raised the bar for coding, focused open models, but at the cost of enterprise-grade hardware requirements. Running DeepSeek V4 ships as the 6A5B parameter MOE 37B active per token. DeepSeek dominates coding, but Gemma wins on science and honesty. Let us look at the numbers from April 2026 leaderboards. On MMLU general knowledge, DeepSeek scores 89%, Gemma 87.1, close. On human evil coding, DeepSeek hits 90%, Gemma 82.7. That is a 7-point gap. On Sweetbench verified, which tests real-world software engineering, DeepSeek scores 65.3%, Gemma 52. That is a 13-point gap. DeepSeek dominates coding, but on GPQ, a diamond, a hard science reasoning benchmark, Gemma scores 62.1%, DeepSeek 59.4%. Gemma wins scientific reasoning. On Truthful QA, Gemma hallucinates less 638.9 versus 66.2. So the pattern is clear. DeepSeek for code, Gemma for science and honesty. That headline 37B active number makes it sound cheap to run. It isn't. You still need to keep the entire weight set in memo source brief to AI URLs. Manually provided source, automatic text retrieval failed, contenuto testual insufficient, la pagina potreb essere JS rendered, Reddit is split, some love it, some are disappointed, Reddit sentiment is mixed. One thread from May 11 titled, "Am I the only one underwhelmed by V4 Pro and Flash?" has 83 votes and 89 comments. The user tested for coding and was not impressed. Another post from May 2 on R or OpenCode CLI points out a perceived problem. The models are designed to finish whole tasks without stopping, which makes negotiation or opinion difficult. That is a real workflow issue if you need iterative refinement. On the positive side, an April 25 thread on R or Silly Tavern AI asked anyone disappointed on DeepSeek V4. And one commenter said, in brief testing, Flash worked well. So early adopters are split. Some love the coding performance, others find the behavior rigid. For Gemma 4, Reddit discussions are harder to find in the available data, but the general vibe is that it is a solid all-rounder for multimodal tasks. Gemma 431B is Google DeepMind's strongest Gemma 4 open model and built from the same research and technology as Gemini 3 and released under the Apache 2.0 license. Quick aside, if you study from your own notes, try Mnemonic. It turns PDFs, slides, and recordings into summaries, mind maps, flashcards, quizzes, and exam practice. The free plan is enough to test the workflow. Link in description. Then we go back to the video. One model needs a maxed out Mac. The other fits a consumer GPU. DeepSeek V4 Flash at 80 gigs quantized needs a high-end Mac with at least 128 gigs of unified memory. That means M4 Max, M5 Max, or Max Studio. No consumer GPU can hold that. Gemma 431B at Q4 needs 16 gigs of RAM, and RTX 4090 handles it easily. The 26B MOE at Q4 needs 14 gigs. So if you have a single consumer GPU, Gemma 4 is your only choice for local inference. If you have a maxed out Mac, you can run DeepSeek V4 Flash is feasible. The Pro version with 1.6 trillion parameters is not realistic locally. The Flash version is the sweet spot for local deployment. API pricing tells a different story than benchmarks. If you are not running locally, API pricing matters. DeepSeek V4 Pro costs 27 cents per million input tokens and 1.10 per million output. Gemma 431B on GCP costs 25 cents input and 50 cents output, so Gemma is cheaper for output-heavy workflows. But DeepSeek V4 Flash is not listed with a separate price in the available sources, so assume it is similar or slightly cheaper than Pro. The bigger difference is self-hosting. Gemma 4 can run on a single workstation for free after hardware cost. DeepSeek V4 Flash needs expensive Mac hardware. For most developers, the cost calculus favors Gemma unless you specifically need DeepSeek's coding benchmark edge. No universal winner. The best model depends on your hardware and task. Here is the bottom line. If your primary need is coding, especially complex software engineering tasks, DeepSeek V4 Flash is the better model based on benchmark data. The SWI bench gap is significant. If you need multimodal input, images, audio, video, or you work in scientific reasoning, Gemma 431B is the choice. It also hallucinates less. For local deployment, Gemma 4 is far more accessible. A single RTX 4090 runs it. DeepSeek V4 Flash needs a maxed out Mac. For API usage, Gemma is cheaper on output tokens. So, the best model depends on your hardware, your budget, and your task. There is no universal winner. Comment test if you want me to benchmark DeepSeek V4 Flash vs Gemma 4, the version 2060B and 31B. A comparison and a show if they can be used locally and which one is the best of these. Why? What people think in Reddit against the model you use most. So, which model fits your rig? Are you Team DeepSeek or Team Gemma? Drop Flash or Gemma in the comments and tell me why. If you want the full local setup guide for one of these, smash that like and I'll film it next.